How's everybody doing? So just want to show or cover just a little bit of the painting of this graphics here. So there's many ways you can do graphics, decals like water slide, dry transfer, and I like to paint if I can. Now there are no decals for this size, this style of font or whatever for this particular application. So what I like to do is just create my own stencil, and I use Tamiya tape for this because Tamiya tape's the best. Like, I'm just going to come out and say it, right? Like I have all the tapes. I've had all the tapes and used all the tapes, and they all have a purpose and they all have a place in the hobby. But when you want to do really fine lines with basically like or next to nil seepage, even without a clear coat, if it's done right and it's low humidity, you can't beat Tamiya tape. It's just, I've been using it for 30 years. I've never found a tape yet that's better. I mean, there are other tapes that are good. I know the names, but this isn't a tape review. Now, the problem is other tapes can be used, but they tend to leave, depending on the temperature, there's many factors going on. You can't control the climate exactly all the time when you're doing masking and painting and trying to control bleed and so on. But I find, like, there's another tape I was using, I'm not going to say the name, but it left glue, like little bits of glue residue on my surface, and I don't like that. So I'll just throw the tape aside, and I'll always default back to Tamiya when I do this kind of thing, like font and stuff. I've done it on buildings, plastic, wood, whatever. It works great. Now, when you're going to mask off a large area, then just use brown manila paper and tape. You know, like, you're not going to use Tamiya tape for bulking out stuff. You use it for doing your fine scale work on models, etc. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to show you a couple of steps. So as I've shown, I think I mentioned earlier, I did this side already. This is the side that doesn't normally show on the model, and there was, like, this wasn't perfect. I mean, it's laid up as perfect as can be, but there was a little bit of bleed that I overlooked. It didn't get behind the paint didn't get behind the tape. When I was joining font pieces together, there was a hairline that I never covered up and I got through. But that's easy to remove. I'll let this cure one more day, and then I'll mask this off and just lightly wet sand that, because this is rattle can heavy duty Tamiya paint, which is awesome. And you can basically wet sand it if you have enough on there. There's several coats here, primer and pure white, and you'll never see it, and it's white plastic underneath. So okay, so I'll just show you a few steps on how I do this and why I like to do it, because it looks awesome, right? And just quickly, just to mention, this is dry transfer. Okay, these are just dry transfers that you rub with a pencil. You sort of have to use tape to sort of line them up. I don't know if I showed this yet, but I might have. So you don't want to do this on camera because you'll probably mess it up. Okay. Oh, that feels good. Anyway, dry transfer looks pretty good. It kind of has a painterly kind of look to it as well. But anyway, I'll show you how I do this and lay it up, etc. Okay, so you can see I just take a piece of sheet, this is I think 60 thou plastic, and I lay 2 lengths of Tamiya tape across like that, extra to cover this symbol. And then what I do is I cut this symbol out of the paper, okay, and I just tape it down on the outside. I cut it close to the outside print and just put a piece of thinner tape around the edge, and I basically just cut right through. And I've already cut through this. I can't do it on camera because it's too fiddly and I'll mess it up, but I just did it off camera to show you, so you can see the eye parts cut out. This is all cut out, so when I lift this paper off, which I won't yet because I'm going to do these are easy to do. you can see where it cuts through to the plastic, and then I lift off this, what's left of this paper, and I'll show you. I'll just have a stencil, a tape stencil that I carefully lift off and apply on the model. So this will go on the model, but I pull out these centerpieces because this is where the red paint's going to go when it's on the model, right? I don't need this. And I don't need this one either. There's two pieces of tape here, so I'll lay the top piece on. I'll just relay it on. Just with a bit of trial and error, I'll lay it onto the model. I got some guide markers on there, and I'll lay that on, and then I'll just mask around it to protect from overspray. Make sure this is down tight, and then I'll just airbrush this. I'll clear coat it first just to seal all the edges, and then red, and then peel it off, and you're done. It's a beautiful, you know, hand painted or hand sprayed in scale symbol. In this case, the Washington logo, the lion head. Love it. So you can see that I'm just cutting out these letters. There's the A. I cut through the paper because this template paper is taped down the border around it, right? So once you cut it out, you just throw those away. And then you can see, like with this one, what I did is I just took a straight edge and I just did the top letters, like the S, the A, the S, the A there, and then the bottom. And then what I do is I just come in here freehand. Actually, the hardest part about this isn't really, well, it's just the fear. Like, just do it. Like, don't worry about messing up. Like, fear's the biggest hindering factor in all of this. Like, you just dive in anyway, right? Like, I remember when I used to, like, I didn't like cold water growing up as a kid. But, you know, I always found that once you just dove in, just be brave and dive in. And then it was like, wow, this isn't too bad. It's actually pretty good, actually. So you can see I'm just, you don't need to press down that much. Sorry, I'm not used to talking and doing this kind of thing, but you can see I'm just slowly tracing on the inside of that curve with a nice brand new number 11 blade. There, that piece is done, see? And then this, see if we can pull this one off. One thing that I find that even I do sometimes is I press a little bit too hard. You just got to lighten up a bit. They'll use the weight of your arm. There we go. That's a good one. And this bottom piece, the bottom of the P on C-SPAN will probably fall into the second line of tape on the bottom, which you can just add in later when you lay it on the model. Right? And so just go all the way along and then peel this old paper template off and then lift this off and then lay it on the side of the superstructure and seal it up nice, press it in good, and then just airbrush it, peel it off, and you're done. Okay, so I just want to talk about this part just for like a minute or so here. So I've got it all on now. Okay, you can see that, the mask. And then I took some brown paper, cut a rectangle, and just taped it off so I don't get any red overspray on the side of the ship here. But you know what's funny? Like, I've already done the other side. I've done the port side, and I thought, well, I'll save the starboard side for last, because if I make any mistakes on the port side, then I'll solve it. And then when I do the good side, I guess the show side, I mean, the other side looks fine, but I'll resolve it, I'll perfect it. But I had more trouble with this font here than I had on the other side. It was, I don't know, I guess I wasn't feeling it. So I had to lift some of these off. It was really tough. Like, this logo went down just beautifully, like better than the one over there, even though the other one worked perfectly as well. But this one I didn't struggle at all with. It just went down nice. And then I started doing 2 letters at a time, and it got really dicey, and like, it's a bit fiddly to do. You can do it though if you use tape lines and stuff, and just take your time and maybe do 1 letter at a time. But it's nice to do, actually I think I did 3. I think I did C first, But oh boy, that's a pattern that you're maybe is a bit of a handful. But anyway, I got it on. And you can tweak it with a bamboo stick. Like I find that, like, to me it tapes really good that way. Like you can actually, you know, work it in with a bamboo stick and tweak, you know, some of the round corners and things like that really good. So that's good. So what I'm going to do is normally I like to paint this, but I'm just going to let this sit until tomorrow, and then I'm going to look at it with new eyes. Like I'm going to wait one day. I'm just going to keep it here, and I'm going to come back and look just to double check and make sure it's everything is just right, because red on white, it'll show, right? So that's what I'm going to do. But before I do, can I just point out one thing? So I'm going to clear coat this first. I'm going to use flat clear probably, or maybe semi-gloss clear, because this white is glossy. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because, like, I'll just show you here. So this is the white surface of the model, right? Here's the cross section, right? Okay. And this is the tape, like the stencil. So the reason why I like to shoot clear coat, like a layer, like just spray a layer of clear coat over top of the tape and the white surface before the red paint, is because what happens is the clear coat goes over top, and if there is any leaching underneath the tape, it will be clear coat, right? So it won't show, like this is white, like it'll just be clear, but it'll plug the gap, so to speak, with clear. So when you lay your red paint on, even if you get heavy or if it's a bit too thin or whatever, it won't leach through the corner because it's sealed with clear coat, and you get a beautiful crisp, like lines, like font when you peel the tape off. I've done it many times in the past and it works beautifully, right? If you want to do that. But if you're okay with just shooting on a fast dry matte paint like Tamiya, you probably won't have to worry about it if you use just thin coats, like, you know, 4 or 5 times to cover it, or 6 or 7 times or so. But if you want to be certain, just clear coat this a couple of times thin with an airbrush, or you can use a rattle can as well. And when you go to spray your color, in this case red, you won't get any leaching or seepage under this tape stencil. It'll be nice, crisp font, okay? So what I did was I just clear coated with the airbrush, semi-gloss clear, X35, which I mix 50-50 with their X20A thinner. Okay, so that'll seal all the edges of the font, the tape font in this case, and then just you can spray that the color of your choice and it'll be nice and crisp. Okay, so here's the point of no return, right? Anyway, I just want to say I really love this logo. This is the Washington Court logo. It's kind of like, it's sort of like the lion head is not overdone. It's sort of this a little bit of humility there, dominated by the ego of the name, right? Washington, right? Anyway, I just find it really neat. It's a you know, a form of subdued capitalism. But anyway, so you only get one, so there's no going back at this point. So I'm just gonna lightly just get her going there, a little bit of paint on there just to make sure. Like, you don't want to lay it on too heavy because otherwise you'll pool the paint and you'll encourage you know, leaching of paint in behind the mask. So I'm just going to do this and then let it dry for a bit. It looks a bit pink right now because of the white obviously shining through, which is a fundamental I love to do when I paint. I love to always think that whatever the underlying color is, should I let it play? Not in this case, but in other situations, with more so with earth tones and stuff, or if you just want to introduce fade. Why add fade when it's already there to begin with, if you think backwards, like, you know. So because this is Tamiya paint and it's quite warm and I got a fan on, sorry if you can hear that, it dries quite quickly. But this boat's going to be weathered a bit too, so I want some fade, I guess. You know, painting a model, no matter what it is always a bit of a risky adventure or unpredictable, especially when you're masked, because you just never know. That's why it's not really just a science. It's art. Like you can't predict the outcome of art like when you're applying paint to a surface. You could do the same procedure, the exact same procedure over and over again. You're going to get a different result on a micro level, not so much a macro level, but with paint, you never know. You can have days where everything just goes beautifully, right? Like I did the other side, and it turned out pretty good. This side seems to be turning out pretty good. There's a minimal amount of, I can see, bleed, even though I clear coated. But you know, when you see like the prototype, like if you go up close to really large font on a prototype, you don't notice it because you view everything a distance away. It's not perfect either, you know. So, but you know, you can have days where everything goes well and then days where things go south on you, and it's all fixable. But it's nice when everything comes off well. But I've learned over the years to not sweat it too much. I've learned that, hey, and you can't always be in control of everything, right? And it's just a model at the end of the day, and you can always tweak it or fix it. See, there's a little bit of bleed there, but what's nice about this base coat here, this is to me a rattle can. I don't normally lay paint on heavy, but when I do large surfaces like this, like, you know, kind of automotive style almost, then I like to get a good heavy, like several heavy coats on. And there's good reason for that, because you can wet sand away like stains and stuff, or you know, parts that are you know, like blemishes or little seepages that you want to get rid of. You can mask off, you know, the red, like let's say in this case, and just wet sand it away, and there's enough white paint here that it won't go through. And even if it does, it's white plastic and it looks exactly the same. And then you can come back and just shoot a thin layer of clear coat on the model, and it'll fix a multitude of sins, believe me. And you won't notice it collectively on the model, like if you view it objectively, like you haven't seen it before, and you just, you know, you didn't actually build it yourself, but you forget about it after a while, and you learn to live with the imperfections of a model. So that looks pretty good, eh? It's not, like you say, I could go OCD on this and say, wow, it's not really perfect. It looks good to me. It looks really good. The other side, let's see if I can swing this big boat around here. The other side looks pretty good too. Yeah. C-span. This is the earlier livery, just before, well, right up to about 2011-12, which is the period of my River Road, like the modeling, like the model railroad itself and the operations, the center around that period, around 2017 to 2011, 2012. And then later they repainted this when they refit the ship, and then they put the meatball here, and then C-span in black with fairies under here. But then it wasn't long after, maybe 10 years. Was it 10 years, maybe, that livery was, before the ship was retired. But this was the livery that was used when it was servicing the barge slip on Annis's Island.